Uh, President Volodymyr Zelensky is set to make a high-stakes visit to the Group of Seven summit, seeking to win support from middle powers such as Brazil and India, while building on the backing of the U.S. and its allies as Ukraine readies a counteroffensive to Russia's release. The leader received some good news before arriving in Hiroshima when U.S. President Joe Biden dropped his reluctance on countries sending F-16 fighters to Kyiv. That could eventually boost Ukraine's ability to take on Russia in the air and support its troops on the ground. G7 leaders who have been looking to secure supply chains for key materials that were less dependent on China also launched a new measure to counter economic coercion. Leaders are looking to send a signal to Beijing that they are united in countering what they see as hostile actions on the economic front by President Xi Jinping administration. Discriminated eyes China with new joint effort against economic coercion. Saudis host Zelenskiy, Assad in new show of diplomatic force. Sunset at 1,400-year-old shrine is backdrop for a G7 family photo. I can't think of a port of controversial time, and G7 restricts more goods but avoids near total Russia export ban. India has the world's fate in its hands. David Fickling, Hiroshima is the place you must visit in Japan. Howard Chua Aoyam. Look at all times JST watching the government formally announce Zelensky will attend the G7 in person, saying the decision came after he expressed a strong desire to meet other leaders face to face. Zelensky will take part in 2 sessions on Sunday, one on Ukraine with G7 leaders and one on peace and stability that includes outreach leaders. He will also meet Japanese Prime Minister Fumio Kishida for bilateral talks. Kishida met Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi to discuss trade and economic relations. India is one of several nations invited to the gathering. Modi is also due to speak with Zelensky in the Japanese city, which would be their first in-person conversation since Russia's release of Ukraine. India has been a prime buyer of Russian oil and weapons, providing hard currency to Vladimir Putin's government at a time the G7 is seeking to starve the Russian economy of funds. It's in a so-called Quad grouping with Australia, Japan, and the U.S., whose leaders will also meet in Hiroshima. The group has been seen as a counterforce to Chinese assertiveness in the Indo-Pacific region. What's the Quad, and should China fear it? Quick take. PM at Narendra Modi met PM Priscilla Fordu in Hiroshima. Both leaders discussed ways to enhance India-Japan friendship across different sectors, including trade, economy, and culture. Twitter.com/ Biden is set to announce a new aid package for Ukraine after meeting Zelensky at the G7. Politico reported, citing 3 U.S. and Ukrainian officials. The $375 million package will include more artillery shells, armored vehicles, and anti-tank weapons, according to Politico. China's ambassador is urging Prime Minister Justin Trudeau to avoid further provocation as Canada weighs whether to launch a public inquiry into claims the Chinese government meddled in its elections. Ambassador Kangava Peiwu said Canada should consider returning to a more independent foreign policy rather than following the lead of the U.S., its neighbor and biggest trading partner. China warns Trudeau off provocation after diplomatic spat. Zelensky attended an Arab summit in Saudi Arabia before leaving for Hiroshima and addressed leaders including Syria's President Bashar al-Assad, a pariah in the West and staunch Putin ally. Zelensky had sit-down meetings with the heads of delegations from the United Arab Emirates, Kuwait, and Oman. His office said Arab countries have opted against sanctioning Russia, and most too are neutral about the war, if not openly supportive of Putin. Zelenskiy, Assad, and Musho diplomatic force. The leaders gathered at Tsukushima Shrine on Friday to walk the grounds and pose for a group photo in front of its vermilion-hued Torii Gate set in inland sea waters. They also held a working dinner where discussions touched on subjects, including tensions in the Taiwan Strait and nuclear disarmament. The leaders issued a statement after their session on Ukraine where they reiterated our firm rejection of Russia's illegal attempts to acquire Ukrainian territory by force. They also appeared to take a stand against the ceasefire proposal by China. We sent a special envoy to Ukraine this week, saying we underline that a just peace cannot be realized without the complete and unconditional withdrawal of Russian troops and military equipment. And this must be included in any call for peace. G7 to chase Russia's diamonds while stopping short of total ban. The leaders said they will work to restrict Russia's access to their economies and cut off the flow of items that could be used for the Kremlin's war machine. So we reiterate our call on third parties to immediately cease providing material support to Russia's aggression or face severe costs. They said some